This is Matthew Kratter's Bitcoin University. Today I want to answer the question, did Jeffrey Epstein finance Bitcoin Core? We're going to be talking about the MIT Media Lab, which is an interdisciplinary research lab at MIT. And then we're going to be talking about one of their initiatives, which is called the DCI, the Digital Currency Initiative. This conducts research, development, and education to advance the security, scalability, and privacy of decentralized and centralized digital currency systems. And as you would expect, it's being housed at the MIT Media Lab. Some of the founding contributors to DCI include the Chaincode guys, Jack Dorsey, Fidelity, the Winklevoss twins, Reid Hoffman, Michael Saylor, who's also a graduate of MIT in 1987, and John Pfeffer. So really a who's who from the Bitcoin and crypto space. The article we're going to be talking about today was published by TheRage.co. It's called Emails Reveal Jeffrey Epstein Money Finance Bitcoin Core Development. And I'll put a link to this in the description notes below. It goes like this. New emails from the Epstein estate released this week by the House Oversight Committee reveal that the financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein assisted MIT Media Lab director Joichi Ito, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, in the funding of MIT's Digital Currency Initiative, DCI, and that at least some of the funding was directed towards Bitcoin Core development. While public reports have hinted that some of Epstein's funding may have been directed to the Media Lab's DCI, which at the time served as the main funding arm for the first digital currency's reference implementation, Bitcoin Core, MIT's independent investigation of the scandal described mentions of Epstein in concurrence with the DCI as quote-unquote cursory, finding only a single instance in which Ito arranged for a meeting between Epstein and his Bitcoin, quote-unquote Bitcoin students. The emails now shed new insight into Epstein's connections and influence in the early Bitcoin and cryptocurrency community. In September 2019, Ito handed in his resignation after the investigative journalist Ronan Farrow revealed that the prestigious research facility had received funding from Epstein. MIT had disclosed that the financier had donated a total of $850,000 to the institution, of which $525,000 were directed at the Media Lab. But Farrow claimed that the MIT Media Lab had received $7.5 million via Epstein, including an anonymous $5 million donation from Epstein associate Leon Black. The correspondence between Ito and Epstein now appears to confirm that Black did make donations through Epstein to Ito's Media Lab. Leon Black is a big private equity guy, if I'm remembering correctly. So in many ways, this is old news. This is the article by Ronan Farrow from September of 2019, how an elite university research center concealed its relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and this resulted in the director of the lab, Joichi Ito, actually resigning from his post. But now we have these new files that have been made available. I'll put a link to this in the description notes below. This is a really helpful search engine that was put out by couriernewsroom.com, and it allows you to search 20,000 files from the Epstein estate. So all these texts and all these emails that are being released. So you can type in Bitcoin, which is what I did, and that's how I found this email from Jeffrey Epstein to Joichi Ito. This is from April 25th, 2015. It starts off with Jeffrey Epstein's response saying Gavin is clever, Gavin Andreessen, who's the guy who took over the repo after Satoshi left and then was subsequently sort of disgraced as part of the block size wars. That's Gavin Andreessen. And then we have Joichi Ito writing to Jeffrey Epstein, for your information, used gift funds to underwrite this, which allowed us to move quickly and win this round. Thanks, from Joy. And then he links to a much wider circulated message about the Digital Currency Initiative. And it goes like this. As Bitcoin and digital currencies have started to become an important trend, the Media Lab has launched an initiative in the space. I wrote a blog post on why I think blockchain, Bitcoin are like the internet. And it goes on to say the way that Bitcoin is organized currently is that there are 5 core developers and around 100 contributors to the core code. This is Bitcoin Core. The 5 core developers are like the Linus Torvalds of Linux. They decide what changes are made to the core code. One of the 5 is lead developer Wladimir, and one is the chief scientist, Gavin. That's Gavin Andreessen. Gavin, Wladimir, and Cory, an important contributing developer, I believe this is Cory Fields, were being paid out of a nonprofit called the Bitcoin Foundation. A few weeks ago, it blew up when one of the board members declared the foundation bankrupt. Many organizations scrambled to step into the vacuum created by the foundation and take control of the developers, quote unquote, take control of the developers. We moved quickly, talking to all the various stakeholders, and the 3 developers decided to join the Media Lab. This is a big win for us. So this is Gavin Andresen, and this is Vlad van der Laan and Cory Fields. So this is the email from April of 2015. As I said, Gavin Andresen became a big blocker and then had his Bitcoin Core keys revoked shortly after this in May of 2016, I believe after stating that he believed that Craig Wright was Satoshi, who's clearly not Satoshi. Vlad van der Laan stepped down as a core maintainer fairly recently, February of 2023, right before the inscriptions craze was beginning to take off. And I should say here, I've heard nothing but nice things about Vlad from talking to various people. If you're enjoying this video so far, I'd pause really briefly here to ask you to help to support this channel. Hit the subscribe button, that does really help. Leave a like, leave a comment, question, suggestion for a future video, and share this video with a friend or family member so we can see here the article on Vlad that he did step down in February 2023 and removed his right access privileges as a maintainer to Bitcoin Core. He was interviewed as part of the Rage's article here, and the quote from him is, "I didn't know about this," van der Laan tells the Rage, adding that the DCI funding is not very transparent, definitely not back in the day, while highlighting that DCI funding comes with no strings attached whatsoever. Fields did not respond to a request for comment in the time of publication. So you can go through and read this fuller article. I went back and looked at DCI, and we can see a bunch of people here, Cory Fields, and then there's some people who are no longer, it's hard to tell how many of these people are still being funded. AJ Towns is obviously still very active at Bitcoin Core. Marco Falke stepped down a few years ago, as we're going to see. But you can go through here and basically see even people who are apparently no longer core maintainers, Mara van der Laan here. So I don't think this webpage has been updated, but you can go through, look at what various people are working on. Cory Fields, for example, at the Uni on GitHub, and so we can see all of his activity here. I decided to go and look if he did an ACK or a NAC for data carrier size for the whole Operaturn scandal, and he did not do it. AJ Towns is here, I believe Marco Falke is here, etc. But you can go through and try to match all these people. Falke stepped down, though, as a maintainer around the same time as Vlad van der Laan, it looks like in February of 2023. So I went through, looked at each of these names. Definitely AJ Towns seems to be more on the spam side of things. It's hard to tell here whether he's still being funded by DCI. Van der Laan essentially retired. Sebastian Kung is another one, but I don't know if he's still being funded. So you can go through and look at all of these on the DCI webpage. I have to say, though, after going through this, it's hard to dig really deeply into what each of these people is doing, but I don't see any evidence of Epstein's influence on the direction and development of core software, just going through this. And a lot of this happened a long time ago, the funding, even before the block size wars. As Bruce Fenton points out here, he says this is old news. The Bitcoin Foundation, where he used to be executive director, funded early Bitcoin development. We made a deal with MIT to take over and pay the salaries of a few key developers, those three we were just talking about. Joy Ito was in charge of the MIT Media Lab, which this was part of. Much later, after we were not involved, Ito got funding from Epstein. It looks like he actually did get funding more at the same time through that Leon Black donation. And then Warren Togami saying, I was a critic of the Bitcoin Foundation and Gavin Andresen, but even I have to agree that this is a nothing burger. Epstein was a bad man, but the MIT DCI connection had no meaningful influence on Bitcoin development. Epstein and his funding are clearly not the problem today either at Bitcoin Core. I believe the real problem is a chummy group of friends and colleagues in the inner circle who love to ack each other in all senses of the word and support each of their initiatives and sort of close ranks against the outside world and push through very contentious updates, as we've seen with the Operaturn wars of this year. And so I would ask, rather than focusing on this Epstein stuff, which seems very old news, and it doesn't seem that Epstein had any certain plan to corrupt the protocol, but I would focus today on the current Bitcoin Core devs. What kinds of discussions are they having offline in their New York City office that never make it back on to the Bitcoin mailing list or the GitHub discussion? Why are so many of them so eager to please Bitcoin Infinity scams and other crypto startups like Citria? Why are so many of them so interested in turning Bitcoin into Ethereum? Is there a money trail here? Is there an influence trail? How many devs are working informally or formally for intel agencies? So rather than focusing on old news about Epstein, I think we should really focus on what is staring us in the face here, the elephant in the room. So if you want to investigate something, I would suggest investigating Chaincode Labs, Brink, which has funded Marathon, funded Mara that mines spam, for example, and then HRF, the Human Rights Foundation. Here's Marathon's $500,000 donation to Brink, and this made its way to many of the current Bitcoin Core devs. Here's Chaincode, here's Antoine Poinceau, who's been really part of the pro-spam argument, and then here's our HRF funding Gloria, Zhao. And again, it's hard to tell, are these current grants, are they ongoing? And then I also found this old article, which was a little bit disturbing, from December 2020, just the headline: Gloria, Zhao, and Brink are set to give Bitcoin Mempools an upgrade. And boy, did you give Bitcoin Mempools an upgrade, Gloria, unfortunately, by blowing open Datacarrier size. So that's my conclusion. I think rather than focusing on Epstein, we should really focus on what's going on in 2025. It's quite bad enough, and we don't have to invoke demons from the past like Epstein to explain it. What we see happening before our face is in many ways much, much more disturbing. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.